Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Samaras.
Here.
Councilor Belanger.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yeah.
Councilor Leahy. Here. Councilor Leary.
Here.
Councilor Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Rourke.
Here.
9 present.
Before we start the meeting, the city manager maybe would like to introduce the 2 honorary city managers for the day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thanks to their magnanimous contribution to the Salvation Army Radiothon, is that these lovely 2 young women sitting next to me are acting city manager for the day. I feel like a thorn between 2 roses. We have Nancy McGovern is here as acting city manager for the day, and Mary Burns on my right, and they will be fielding any and all questions that you have for them this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We have a communication from the National Grid Gas Distribution System. The chair will entertain a motion to, The chair will entertain a motion to accept and place the communication on file. We have a motion by Councilor Samaras, seconded by Councilor Rourke. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next item of business is from the city clerk, the minutes of the city council meeting for February 16th for acceptance. We have a motion to accept by Councilor Leahy, seconded by Councilor Leary. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. It's before 7 o'clock, so we'll skip ahead of the public
Your Honor.
hearings.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
Yep.
All right, Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules so we can take 251 out of order.
Second.
Which item is that?
5.1, to vote from the city manager.
Okay. We have a motion to accept the rules. We have general consent to that. Any objection to suspending the rules? Hearing no objection, we'll suspend the rules and take 5.1 out of order. 5.1 is a vote to accept Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 60, Section 1, Paragraph 8, to waive the excise tax for motor vehicles owned and registered by active members of the armed services. This has to go to a public hearing, but Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. So we have a couple of speakers here tonight. They would like to be heard on the report, and then we'll hear from the manager before we send it.
Motion to suspend the rules to allow speakers to present.
Okay, the speakers? First speaker?
Oh, I'm sorry. And so first speaker would be Representative Diana Rizzocchio. Did I get that right? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, Councilor Leahy, honorable members of the wonderful City of Lowell City Council here today. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak before you and to address you on this very important issue. This measure I strongly support. I came out here today to speak on behalf of this issue as it pertains to my own experience with this from the city of Methuen. We had a resident in the city of Methuen, a bright, intelligent, strong young woman who chose to serve in our military. She was stationed abroad. She wanted to dedicate herself to a life of service for our community, for the Commonwealth, and for the nation. And she was stationed abroad, had some issues with her excise tax and paying her excise tax. She was abroad for a couple of years. She came back to find that the car that she hadn't driven had several issues. She needed to re-register it and was facing challenges with that. She had to pay back taxes on her excise tax. And that was amongst a host of other things that you can imagine you're facing when you come back from serving, along with the family issues and other things that people face when they choose to serve. So her family approached me and our city council members, and under the leadership of one of our city councilors, Tom Shula, East District City Councilor in the city of Methuen, the city of Methuen was able to pass an ordinance to waive the excise tax fee for active duty military men and women, active duty service members in general, who are stationed outside of the state of Massachusetts and not using their vehicle. These are men and women who have put their lives on the line for us. They have chosen to go abroad. Their families are not using their vehicles. They're not using their vehicles. They are not driving on our roads. They are, in fact, in active duty service to protect you, me, and our family and our friends. So to me, to have somebody come back and to have to face the challenges not only of reintegrating into society, but also to paying, whether it's an exorbitant fee or a small fee, on something like an excise tax on a vehicle that they're not using and on roads that they're not driving on, I think that we need to take another look at this. So what we did in the city of Methuen is we had that fee waived through the leadership of Tom Shula and the members of the city council and the mayor in the city of Methuen. I filed a bill at the legislative level, at the state level, to try and waive this fee statewide or provide an opportunity at least to encourage this to be done statewide amongst our municipalities. And when I spoke about this on the radio, Councilor Leahy was listening that day, and he approached me. We had a discussion, and he said, you know what, I really want to do this in the city of Lowell. I think that the city of Lowell, our veterans here, our servicemen and women here, the people who are actively serving, the men and women in this community and our families, they deserve an opportunity to have this fee waived as well. It's one additional thing, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, honorable members of the City Council, it's one additional thing that we can do to give back to those who do so much to protect us. So I strongly support this measure. I want to encourage you to pass this evening. I hope it receives a unanimous vote in support of passing this measure. And I want to thank you for the opportunity for coming here this evening to speak with you. And I want to open it up to questions. If that's allowed here, I don't know how the process goes here, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Thank you, Representative. We do have a second speaker, and then the council would take questions.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, and City Administration. My name is John McDonald, resident of Lowell. I reside at 8 Wilder Avenue. I come here tonight in support of Councilor Leahy's motion and this vote to explore creating a program to waive excise taxes for active duty military personnel, and that I hope will piggyback the recent legislation filed by State Representative Diana DeZoglio and mirror the similar motion made and passed unanimously by the City of Methuen's City Council. Almost a year ago in these very chambers, a motion was made by then Mayor Elliott to create a Lowell Veterans Commission, and it was unanimously passed by this City Council representing us here tonight. I believe the formation of the Lowell Veterans Commission, along with the desire to expand it, shows the energy and passion the City of Lowell is displaying to its veterans, community, and citizens. With recent various veterans issues addressed by this council, and by simply discussing this motion tonight, should make every veteran in Lowell proud that amongst all the other issues facing this community, that this City Council is demonstrating that veterans are a priority. Presently in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, disabled veterans and former prisoners of war have the opportunity to apply for a motor vehicle excise tax exemption. This does not, however, apply to all active duty military members that are currently serving, as Representative DeZoglio had mentioned. As a veteran, that served in a remote location during a time of war, I can assure you that paying one's excise tax bill is the bottom of the barrel when it comes to priorities when serving. I'm positive that by passing this motion and hopefully Representative DeZoglio's legislation, that it will be much appreciated by active duty military members and their families. It is my hope that this legislation will pass and your vote will be approved, and that it will be someday, not tonight, but someday expanded to our aging veteran community that served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Our senior citizen veterans also need a break. I hope that you'll all keep them in mind in the future. So perhaps veterans over 70 years old, 75 years old, could also be offered some excise tax relief in the future. Legislation that would show that Lowell and Massachusetts appreciates the Korean War, which is called the Forgotten War, and will in some way properly welcome home the deserving and aging Vietnam veteran population. Council Leahy, good motion, and thank you.
That's it for the speakers. Council Leahy?
That's it for the speaker. So this goes on to public hearing? Okay. So I just want to thank the manager for his report and the work they did on this. It's just one small way to say thank you. Appreciate how fast you got to this, and look forward to bringing this back. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know this is going to a public hearing, and we'll have a chance to speak on it then, but I want to thank John McDonald and Bill Flanagan, Chair and Vice Chair of the Veterans Commission, and Representative DeZoglio as well, and it's a good motion by Councilor Leahy. Just another, it's just another step, another message that we are putting veterans on the front burner, establishing a commission. The commission is active. They've actually discussed, and I've spoken to Secretary of Veteran Affairs, Secretary Urena, about this, and certainly they completely supported the administration, and what they're trying to do on their end is to identify veterans. We don't know how many veterans are in Massachusetts when they're coming back, so we can get them those services. And this is something the Veterans Commission has talked about, having something identify military, active military, or veterans on licenses. So Registry of Motor Vehicles can identify how many veterans we have and how we send mailings out. I know our veterans agent, Mr. Lamarche, the city funds so many benefits for our veterans, but sometimes they don't even know how to reach out to them. So I think this is just another step in addition to the excise tax issue on stepping up and supporting our veterans. So it's a good motion. I look forward to voting yes when it comes up for public hearing. Thank you,
Councilor.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to be able to comment on this, but as the rules state, we are not supposed to form an opinion either way until we have a public hearing. So although I'm compelled to want to say a lot of things, it's tough to keep me quiet, but I want to say this, so please don't be offended. We can't really say what our heart is busting to say, but be that as it may, I remember off and on throughout the years that people would give me a call and say that their son or their daughter went into the service and that there's an unregistered vehicle on their property, and people complained that, and neighbors complained that it was unregistered. So needless to say, they were bothered by our inspectors to do something about that. I think that should be included as part of this. If you're not able to insure or register the vehicle and your loved one has gone into the service, you should be able to keep it on your property until that son or daughter returns home without harassment, and because people are doing their job here, because that's part of the rule. If we could somehow get that involved in that, it's because is there such a thing that you could put a tarp over it, or you have a car, let's say, that you only register in the summer because it's a car that won't hold to the road good in the winter? Can we put that into the description as well in some form of motion on its own or something, because that troubled me all these years, that there was really not much we could do with an unregistered vehicle on private property, that it, because the person isn't around. I think that would be helpful, too.
Mr. Manager, do you have a response to Councilor Mercia's remarks?
Yes, that's an excellent point. However, this is a vote to accept the provisions of a state statute, and that language isn't in the state statute, so
Okay.
it wouldn't affect that. But we could look into changing our ordinances in the city of Lowell, that we could have some provision. It's like a college student
Yes,
going
have
away
a
to school and
provision,
can't bring
yes.
their
It's
car
not
to
like
school.
the person is trying to run an
we could-
illegal something there.
We'll look into
Thank
an
you.
ordinance to
I
try and
figured
work
this
on
was a
that.
nice segue to segue this in without commenting when I can't speak on a particular issue. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, there's a motion by Council Leahy to refer this to a public hearing on March 8th at 7 PM, 2017, seconded by Council Belanger. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. To go back to the regular agenda, under communications, we have motion responses from the city manager. We have 4 motion responses. We'll begin with item A, which is a crosswalk on Varnum Ave at the corner of Aline Street. Any discussion on city manager's response number 1? Council Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to the manager. Mr. Manager, I do see Mr. Mayo here. Could she speak on this, please? On the response on Ely Street, the crosswalk?
Yes, basically what this is that we're the, did you want,
Yeah, either one's fine.
I'll just give a brief
that's fine.
overview, but if you have any questions. Right now, where the crosswalk is on, near Aline Street, but on Varnum Avenue, where there's a curve in the road, and it's really a dangerous place to have a crosswalk. So what we propose to do in the spring is to move the crosswalk to the other side of Aline Street, where it's a straightaway, and cars can see the residents crossing at that point in time. So we're going to be able to make it handicapped accessible and visible, so it's a much safer opportunity for people to cross the street.
Yeah, great. That's terrific news. It's, great job. Thank you. I know there was discussion when the motion was made a while back about the actual bus stops being of some concern of the placement and how they got there. Any update on that as well?
We're trying to track down, it appears that there's no rhyme or reason to how bus stops were arrived at by the LRTA, but we're trying to make a list of the bus stops and figure out which ones are valid and which ones aren't, and make sure that they're all safe, like this Varnum Ave and Aline Street is going to be.
Then my last comment is, so, is there a provision, or should there be a provision that every time that an LRTA bus stop is put in place, there should be a crosswalk put there? Because it is on both sides of the street simultaneously, so maybe something the city could look into is putting a crosswalk if you have a drop-off and a pick-off point, because they're on opposite sides of the streets from each other. So if something like that could be put in place for safety reasons?
In the outskirts of the city, like on Varnum Ave, that could make sense. The ones that are downtown probably already have crossing areas. So on a case-by-case basis, we could look at it to see what's needed.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since we're talking about bus stops and crosswalks, where is the bus stop at Couple Square? There was some talk about moving it away so that we could create additional parking. Is there or is there not a bus stop at Couple Square in the area of where they improved it?
In Couple Square, where they have made the little, I want to call it a patio area, for lack of a better term.
Okay, yes.
The bus stop is there.
Oh, it's right there.
It had been back on the other side of Pine Street, and by moving it into the center, we're able to create a loading parking space.
Okay.
Over on the other side.
So there is one there, right?
The bus stop is at, yes, it's in the middle next to the
Okay,
patio.
all right, that's fine. I thought it was eliminated to make room for parking, so,
Just moved over.
okay, that's fine, thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott?
Thank you on the Elaine Street crosswalk. I appreciate it, Madam Engineer and Mr. Manager. This has been a long-standing concern of people that live in that neighborhood, and certainly a safety issue. There are a lot of people that use the public transportation public transportation, school buses, and it just wasn't safe, and it wasn't handicap accessible. So I'm glad it's going to happen. I know the people in the neighborhood will be happy that people can cross safely. So
Thank you, Council. Council Leahy.
One quick note too, good motion to the manager and his assistants. I have noticed that some of the bus stops weren't shoveled out this year, and we haven't had a lot of snow. Was that on the LRTA, or was that on our, the sidewalks were shoveled, but kind of left an edge going into the bus stops, the covered bus stops. So I only noticed a few of them when I started looking, that they weren't getting, widened so you could go into the terminal. So if we could just check on that before these two go home tonight, maybe they could make some calls. So, thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll move on to item B, traffic lines at the VFW and Bridge Street intersection. Any discussion on item B?
Just, yeah.
Council Leahy.
Just thank you, Mr. Manager, for trying. The couple of people that called me on that understand what's going on with the weather, so thank you. So as soon as the weather gets better, they'll try to. Yep,
I have
thank
an
you.
update. Friday morning at 9. Okay. And it's, with the rain we're going to be getting in the next day or so, any salt that was left on the road should be washed away, which will make it a better surface to paint.
Any further discussion on item B? If not, moving to item C, which is informational from the City Manager Down Payment Assistance Program. Mr. Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you, I think this is terrific news. We reached out to the Lowell plan and their executive director, Mr. Cook, and they have agreed that they're going to include City of Lowell employees in their first-time homebuyer program, which means that they will be able to get a loan, an interest-free loan for up to $5,000 towards the closing costs, which is such an important thing because there are some couples that are on the cusp. And they may be able to afford a mortgage to buy a home, but they can't afford the closing costs. And this is going to allow a lot of people to actually enjoy home ownership. And I thank the Lowell plan for including us in this endeavor.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Council Samaras.
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank the city manager for the quickness of this report. You know, we talk about incentives and we talk about employees that work for the city of Lowell as to, what can we do to get them to live in Lowell? We can mandate it. Mandating doesn't work, as far as I'm concerned. But this is a very positive plan, and I want to thank again the city manager for being active in this plan, and I think it bodes well for the future of the city of Lowell. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on item C? If not, moving on to item D, which is also information from the City Manager regarding capital funds for LPD equipment. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last City Council meeting, we had discussion relative to the shot detection system that was included in the capital plan that this council approved. That now has been converted into a proposal to install surveillance cameras because the technology hasn't advanced so that the two are integrated. We were researching whether we needed a vote from the City Council to reallocate the money to the surveillance cameras, and our bond counsel has instructed us that we do need a vote if we wish to pursue surveillance cameras instead of the shot detection system. So we will be bringing a vote, a formal vote, if the council is so inclined, to reallocate that money to a video surveillance system rather than a shot detection system.
Any further, Councilor Leahy?
Sure. I did want to recommend that we send that to the Public Safety Subcommittee. So I don't know if you want to do that before or after you vote. Well, we got to get the report and, okay, and then we'll send it. So I make the motion now or later, Your Honor? Now?
Whichever you wish.
Okay, so I'll make the motion now to send that to Public Safety Subcommittee.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Leahy, seconded by Councilor Leary to send item D to the Public Safety Subcommittee. Discussion on the motion? Councilor Elliott? Okay. All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. That ends the communications from the city manager. The chair would entertain a motion to accept the communications and place them on file. We have a motion to do so by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Belanger. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Being shortly after 7 o'clock, we'll now move back to to item 3.1. We have 4 public hearings this evening. The first public hearing is to amend an ordinance regarding zoning to extend the NB zone to include 8 and 20 Stockbridge Ave and 9 Magnolia Street. So we'll open the hearing for the proponents. Is anyone who would like to speak in favor of the ordinance?
Good evening,
Ladies, yes.
Mayor Kennedy, City Manager, council members. George Theolides Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell. I'm here with my associate, Mr. Theodoro, tonight in behalf of the applicant petitioner. Since we were last here, and this hearing was opened in January, we've had a hearing before the planning board and a meeting with the neighbors and a neighborhood association. And I'll talk a little bit more about that lately. But first, let me give you a little more information, if I may, on my clients and their hopes and plans for their business. The Hamill family has operated their car repair business for over 60 years on Pawtucket Boulevard. Russell Hamill, who's here with me this evening, and his cousin have gotten together to be the 3rd generation to operate the business, and they want to continue it on. They've made a business deal with their family to be able to do it, and now they want to go ahead, now that they're in control and can operate it, and they're willing to make some investments in the city to make their premises better and for the benefit of the city. They want to invest and grow their business and have it be a success like any good businessman would want it to be. And they're very much aware of the significance of their location. As we all know, I think you all know, they're settled right in the heart of our city where we have the river and the bathhouse across the street. Not far across the street is the Sampus Pavilion, and it's a very busy and important area. They very much want to make it a good and better neighborhood and respect their surroundings, and it's for that reason they're trying to do what they're trying to do now. They didn't just, when they get this control of the business and want to start it, they didn't just bull ahead and do helter-skelter, whatever it is. They came to see me, and they said, we want to make some significant changes, but we don't know if we can because we have, from what we're told, some zoning constraints. And so can you help me with the adjustments that are necessary to do that? We have, by the way, many mechanisms in our books here in the city, many ordinances and mechanisms to protect our zoning and neighborhood situations. And any changes, instructions, additions, parking, any of that stuff have to first go through site plan review, planning board, DPD, and all of that before they can even start to do any of this. I'm sure you well know that. The problem here is that in order to do that, you have to spend, and I can tell you this because it's essentially a big part of the type of work I do, you have to spend thousands of dollars for plans and specs and architects and renderings, engineering and all of that stuff before you can even file a petition to do that. So the problem was that should they spend all that money before they even know that the zoning modification they need is going to be made for them so that they can do that. And what we did was the modification we're looking for is so small, so insignificant, so much in part of what they're hoping to do with the premises. We went forward without getting all the plans and specs and monies that you would normally expect somebody to spend there. So that when the planning board got the matter, it wasn't the typical site plan review that we go through with all the developers that come to the city, and you have to go to the DPD, and you have to go to all of the other departments to show your stuff and whatever. We didn't do that. We couldn't do that because we weren't even sure exactly what we could do. So they had a hearing with the planning board, and because all we did was show them the area, which I'm sure you have on the plans that we previously submitted, to make a small adjustment to give them a little room in the back, we were told that it didn't fit because the neighborhood business that's there should not be changed in any way, that we have so many significant things that forbid us from changing the zoning in that area. It's, by the way, you're all familiar with it. You have Heritage Ice Cream and you have my client. That's the neighborhood business there. And by the way, also, in back of my client, where they want to just extend the zone a little bit more, is a piece of property and a house that they purchased a while ago that they would like to use the area there for parking because, parking their cars, because what they want to do is take all the cars away from the front of the building, or as many as they can, so that what people who walk up or drive up Pawtucket Boulevard will not see stacks of cars like you see in the usual repair and sales place. By the way, I have to say, in my own experience, and I asked you all to take a look at it, I didn't even know these folks sold used cars. That's how subtle and how careful they are about all of this. You go around the city and you've seen all of the locations with the banners flying, even though the ordinances very clearly say you can't do that, et cetera. Well, these people run a first-class operation, and they don't let that happen. So the Hamels are not blow-ins, and they're not Johnny-come-latelys. As I said, the family's been there for a long, long time in this city. They've kept the premises well. They have no junk cars. They have no gasoline. They're a classic neighborhood business, taking care of cars for hundreds of people in Pawtucketville. Hundreds of people in Pawtucketville all these years. They close at 5 o'clock. 5 days a week, they're open. On the weekends, they make the property available for city events, festival events, or whatever, for people to do parking. They do their part to do everything they can to be good citizens and good neighbors. When they bought the house, I didn't finish that, in back of them, they took a parcel of that property they bought, 3,600 square feet of it, and deeded it free to Mrs. Camporis, who owns the house behind them there, so that she would have a bigger and better buffer zone between their business and her house, free. All they want is the opportunity to present their ideas to the city and to their neighbors in a fashion that can show them what they really want to do. They weren't able to do that in the first instance because when we went to the planning board, as I said, all we could do was show them the zoning change we wanted to make, unless they were going to spend thousands of dollars. So I'm asking you tonight to look at this situation and say, let's see what these people have to say, what they want to do, give them a fair chance to present their plan in a fashion that is a logical fashion, in a fashion that will bring it before the Department of Planning and Development, that will bring it before the neighbors in a true fashion of what it, so they can see exactly what it is they're going to do, and bring it before this council subcommittee in a fashion that everybody, I'm asking for it to be brought before the council zoning subcommittee, so that the parties can all look at this situation and say, you know what, this is a logical, reasonable thing that these people are asking for. They're not trying to change any aspect of this. They're not by adding, what they're doing is they believe they can, for example, put all the landscaping and fencing up that they can to make this better now that they own it and operate it. They can do that with there's an empty lot, as you well know, to the right of Stockbridge Street, where they put cars. They're willing to, now that they own it and control it, plant trees and shrubbery and everything there so that it'll mask all of that property from the street that's there as well. So, as I said, what really is the bottom line here, in my humble opinion, in fairness, they should be given the opportunity to have their plans heard out by the DPD, by the others. And, you know, there's protection. There were people who said, when some of the objections that were there were, oh, well, the next person in could go and use this extra property to build an ugly this, that, and whatever. No, they can't. Because like I said, it has to go before site plan review, zoning board, planning board, you know what the process is here. So, and all of those are by hearings that are given notice to the neighbors within 300 feet, notice by publication, notice in the newspaper, and so it's not like they don't have an opportunity if someone else down the road wants to go in there and put something else in there. So as I said, I'm asking the council tonight to refer this to the zoning subcommittee and give us a chance to put it all together with a bunch of heads together that says, let's find a reasonable answer to this situation. And I thank you very much for that opportunity. I know there are people here who are opposed to this. You'll hear from them, but I ask you to give us the chance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? Anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? In favor. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing on part of the proponents and open it up to those who wish to speak in opposition. Does anybody wish to speak in opposition?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Kennedy, city managers, and members of the City Council. My name is Alan Saber. I live at 33 Dunbar Avenue in the area of Pawtucketville, a couple streets over from the area that's in question that we're talking about tonight. I'm in a kind of a tough spot, as I said to the zoning board. I've known the Hamels only for about 50 of those 60-plus years, 2 generations of them. They are a great neighbor. They've been great for the community and the neighborhood. We don't have problems with the business. My father used to take his car there regularly. I'm only here speaking in opposition because I fear another parcel of land being swallowed up and changed over to a zoning business. They can do all that they asked to do and all that they've told you they're going to do, bushes and shrubs and walls and fences, tomorrow. All they need to do is to apply for the permits and put all of that stuff up. Nobody is stopping them. In regards to the neighbors, I'm sorry that I appear to be one of only a few that are here speaking in opposition. I walked the neighborhood on 4 different occasions between the very first meeting at the zoning board and tonight, and to my surprise, very, very many of them, I'm going to say 90% of them, weren't aware of this. They'll wake up one morning and see changes made in their backyard. Why they're here tonight, I can't answer that, and I'm sorry that they aren't. I gave them the opportunity. I wasn't forcing any hands. I did encounter one neighbor who abuts the property, who now will be the buffer if this passes. And he abruptly asked me to leave his property because he's hoping it passes because he wants to do the same thing and further extend the zoning into his property. If I can ask for just a second, in a letter that this council received on this subject dated in November of 2015 from the first Assistant City Solicitor Kenneth Rossetti to City Manager Murphy, Mayor Elliott, and members of the City Council. Within paragraph 6 of that letter, it makes mention, and I quote, "The size of the parcel to be rezoned, together with the surrounding land, should be considered in determining whether or not such a zoning change is proper." The portion of the property we're talking about on Stockbridge Ave, if this goes through, reduces the residential addresses from 4 to 3, going from Pawtucket Boulevard to Varnum Avenue. They're not huge lots. The road from Varnum Avenue widens, as you know, as you go up the boulevard. But there's just not, I just fear to see, you know, again, I'm in a very tough position because I've known Russ and the Hamels for many, many years, and they've been a great neighbor for the area. But I just fear to see another area swallowed up and changed over to business and taken another piece of residential property away. Thank you very much for your time.
Anybody else who wishes to speak in opposition?
Hi, Deb Forgione. I am the chairman of the Pawtucketville Citizen Council. Can you hear me? Because I was having a hard time hearing everyone tonight. Okay, so there's going to be a couple of issues I'm going to have to address to really give the big picture. And I'd like to start with, there probably aren't a lot of people here tonight for a couple of reasons. One is, when you're a neighborhood group, you are a voice for the group, and we did have a meeting where we had 45 to 50 people there. So everything I'm going to be talking about tonight was agreed upon at that meeting, and so I would be here to speak for the group tonight. And also, the request that they're asking, they did not need to notify the abutters. There was no abutter notification. So there are going to be people that are going to be surprised that there's even a suggested change, never mind we're here tonight even speaking for or against it. So when you have a request that they're doing, they don't have to notify the abutters. So let's just fast forward to the fact that they went to the planning board, and you have a 4-member planning board who, in their wisdom, in their knowledge, all 4 unanimously said that this request, that they would support the fact of denying it. And then they gave you a list of reasons why, and that letter's in your package. So you have the Lowell Planning Board, all 4 members unanimously recommending to vote against any change to that neighborhood. They're rejecting you change a suburban single-family zone that they're requesting to a neighborhood zone. So here we have the Lowell Planning Board and Pawtucketville Citizen Council, the members support that decision. We listen to their reasoning, and we agree with a lot of the reasoning. And a couple of things to point out too, that if this was a change based on if you're a good business, they would get it. But this isn't a change based on the fact that the Hamel brothers run a good business. It's based on the fact they're seeking to change a zoning. And zoning rules are zoning rules, and they apply to the whole area. And they've been in business for 60 years, but there's people that are living on those streets for 60 years. So they're good neighbors. They're good neighbors. The neighbors that live there now in the residential area, they use the hospitals, they use the schools, they pay their taxes, they bring their cars to the Hamel brothers. So no one deserves it. It's not a decision based on who deserves it because they're either a good business or a good citizen. This has to do with the zoning. And the Lowell Planning Board said that they would be against recommending making that change, and there's a letter that they point out all the reasons why. I did want to just read you the letter that we wrote to the planning board that night when we had heard about the requested change. And we wrote that, dear planning board members, there's a delicate balance in Pawtucketville in maintaining a residential single-family suburban zone, as well as having zones for the hospitals, the nursing homes, and UMass Lowell, plus various businesses. Pawtuckettville citizens have been champions of supporting and maintaining suburban single-family neighborhood character and the quality of life of our residents while we share the neighborhood with the Lowell General Hospital, one of the city's largest employers, as well as the University of Lowell, Duville Manor, and other businesses. Changing a suburban single-family zone to a neighborhood zone is moving in the wrong direction. It takes away our residential neighbors. It adds more traffic, puts more stress on our streets, adds more for police and fire, and harms the neighborhood character of a residential street. Pawtuckettville has been before you in the past and is respectfully asking you to keep the character of Pawtuckettville and do not lessen a suburban single-family zone by increasing a neighborhood business zone. Magnolia and Stockbridge are 85% single-family homes. When these residents bought their homes, they had an expectation that they bought into a single-family residential neighborhood. There was no expectation that would be taken away and changed, and we respectfully ask you to deny the zoning change and maintain the character of the suburban single-family zone in Pawtuckettville. So that was the letter we wrote that night. And just remember, tonight, if you even considered making that change, you're not saying that the Hamill brothers can change it. You're just changing the zone. And if the Hamill brothers tomorrow wanted to sell that property to a big box store, a Walmart, a pharmacy with a drive-through, they can do that. And you can't put a stipulation. If you change zoning, you can't say, well, we're going to change it so the Hamill brothers can have a better business. It doesn't work that way. The moment you change it to neighborhood business, it's going to be whoever buys that property and comes to you with their proposal. So with that said, we're asking you support the Lowell Planning Board, their recommendation to deny the request, support the neighbors who want to keep their neighbors. They want to keep a suburban single-family neighborhood, and we ask that you deny it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who wishes to speak in opposition?
My name is Anne Marie Page. I reside at 26 Fremont Street in Lowell, and I am the president of the Citywide Neighborhood Council, and we're here to support our neighbors. When we hear the word zoning change, we get chills up our spine because we don't know what's going to happen. But on this meeting at the Planning Board, the Pawtuckettville Citizens Council submitted their letter with their thoughts for their neighborhood, and Debbie Forgione, their chairperson, just read it to you. Right? And the Lowell Planning Board had their public hearing and people came. The Lowell Planning Board recommended that this proposal, rezoning, be denied based on the following reasons. The proposed redevelopment project for the area in consideration would promote the encroachment of commercial areas by too great an extent upon the surrounding suburban residential neighborhood. 2, while the master plan generally calls for supporting small businesses throughout the city, the board found that the proposal would not accentuate the objectives of the neighborhood business district. For example, creating walkable business corridors, or would not be a catalyst for economic development through job creation, as no jobs would be created for the purpose of the rezone proposal. So if you have a planning board and they're listening to this, that, and everything else, and they say we don't think this is a very good idea, you may want to revisit it and take another look, because changing zoning in neighborhoods makes a lot of people very nervous and uncomfortable. It's our quality of life. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition, in opposition, in opposition, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing on behalf of the opponents and open it up for discussion for the City Council. And just prior to doing that, I just would like to call everybody's attention to item 4.2, which is a communication from the Planning Board regarding the extension of the Neighborhood Business District at Stockbridge Avenue and Magnolia Street. And that communication is to The recommendation is to deny, and it was a 4-0 vote with 2 members absent. We'll open up for discussion. Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After hearing both the proponents and the opponents, I would like to refer to the zoning subcommittee. I do chair the zoning subcommittee along with my colleague, Councilor Belanger and Councilor Rourke. So I would like to refer to the zoning subcommittee where we can have a discussion and then bring back a recommendation to the full council. So that would be my motion.
Motion by Councilor Milonazo to refer this matter to the zoning subcommittee. Do we have a second for the motion?
Yeah, I'll second that
We
motion.
have a second by Councilor Elliott. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the presentations that were given tonight. I do think that this has been talked about more than once recently. People have come out again more than once within the past couple of months. I'm ready to vote on the hearing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering if the Hamill brothers went before the neighborhood group to discuss their ideas.
Yes, they
Did that ever happen?
Yes, they
And
did.
And how were you received through the neighborhood group? Because I didn't attend that meeting. Yes.
Yes, we did attend the Pawtuckaville Citizens Organization. We spoke in front of them, we presented the plan, we had a robust discussion on it, and they had several questions, and that's what led us to the understanding that we need to develop something further to address issues so that we can work together to get a workable plan. The intransigent view of the Pawtuckaville Citizens Council that there should be no zoning extension at all. There was no discussion as to how we can get to a middle ground here, how we can go ahead and extend the zoning there. And I think in a subcommittee mode, we can see how the zoning lines were drawn and how they affected the Hamills. We have a zoning extension on one side on Magnolia Street of approximately 150 feet, and on Stockbridge, it's 55. So we feel that if we get into a subcommittee and share some ideas, we can see how we can improve it. And they're just
But
not
you-
lines that are cemented in and should never be changed.
So are you saying to me that you met before the neighborhood group and you couldn't come to a consensus?
No.
But you think that by going to a zoning subcommittee, you think that'll happen?
We think we can offer some ideas and to get that to happen to move this along.
And you couldn't convince the planning board either of a...
Can I respond to that, Councilor?
Yes, you can.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear the councilor's initial question. As you may or may not know, wear 2 hearing aids. And if it's a long time been my complaint that this facility does not meet the requirements of the law for people with hearing losses. So I was never going to bring this matter up while I was still practicing law. This is my 45th year at this business. But the fact of the matter is it's made a big disadvantage for people, and it's not complying with the law. Now, to answer the questions, first of all, let's understand. What I'm saying here, Councilor Mercier, is those people, by their own admission, I understand, we want neighbors to have a say. They saw no plan because that's not what the process is, and that's what's wrong in part with the process. So when they sent their letter, by the way, the day of the hearing, and we never got to see it, and if you look at the letter, there is nothing there in opposition to the request for the zoning change that deals with what we were asking for. It's just in general, they didn't want a zoning change. That's it, period. No zoning changes. We're not going to go for the next 50 or 100 years without any zoning changes in the city because that's not what's there. Number two, There was not one other person, other than that gentleman who spoke here tonight and his wife, who were at the hearing to object to this. And they all knew about it and had notice. Nobody showed up. Let me remind this board, because I'm sure you all know it, this council, the last item that the Pawtucketville Council dealt with was the change on Varnum Avenue. There were hundreds of people at the board meeting for that, hundreds of people at the board meeting for that, and they were here till 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's always been my position, folks, that people who really are opposed and care about it, if they want to be, they're here. They're telling you that. They're here telling you that first and foremost. They don't have to sign a petition and they're signing the petition because their neighbor next door asked them to please sign it for them, whatever. If I had a problem with a zoning change or whatever, I'd be here, that's for sure.
But Attorney Eliades, you realize that what they did say had a legitimate message, that the planning board could have overturned it and said yes, and there was no reason why the Hamill family wouldn't sell it. How do we know that? We don't know what.
Well, 2 more points to that, Counselor. Number one, 2 of the 4 regular members were not at that meeting that night, neither the chairman. So there were 2 alternates who sat in there and saw it for the first time. I'm not saying the vote would have been different, but I can tell you it was a different composition of the planning board, number one. Number 2, the fact of the matter is that they didn't hear. They walked in there and objected to this. They heard nothing of what this is. What we're asking for tonight, and by the way, once again, I said before I finished there, somebody's going to say, oh my God, McDonald's is going to go in there. Oh my God, the worst thing in the world is going to go in there. And sure enough, that's what I heard, okay? Remember what I said. No one can go in there and change that use and change what's there without going to site plan review before the planning board, which requires bringing all their plans and specifications to every department along the way, without going to a planning board hearing, without going to a zoning board hearing, an opportunity for every one of the public to go and object to what that bad use might be.
But the planning board denied you.
The planning board denied us. What I'm saying, you're missing. What I'm trying to tell you is we didn't have the opportunity to give them all that information, principally because of the way the system is. The system says if you want to go and give us all the information, then you go and spend $5,000 for a rendering to show you what you're going to do. Go and spend $10,000 for engineers to bring in and tell us what the water's going to be like so that Lisa is satisfied that with the runoff and all of that stuff. So before you can even go into the planning board, you've spent $20,000 or more. Is that fair? It's not fair.
You
I
got
just
other
simply-
questions, Counselor?
I simply asked if they had, that's okay. Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
No, the public hearing is not open. It's just open to the city councilors, but if the city councilors wish to ask questions, then they're allowed to ask those questions. Councilor Mercy, do you have anything further?
No, I guess not.
Okay.
But I tend to look at what the recommendation of the planning board was, and I thought we were going to vote on it tonight. But I'm only one person.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councilor Samaras.
Thank you. Thank you. I was present at that meeting, and the thing about the neighborhood meetings, they really are well organized, and people, speak their mind. And the Hamill brothers did make a very good presentation, and they were listened to and treated respectfully, both sides. But there's an obvious difference in feelings of what should be. And I think what happens, or what has happened in the city, is people, in a sense, don't know. Attorney Eliades was correct. There are many ways of ensuring certain things happen. But people, in this city have seen over time things happen that they're not happy with, okay? And I think what it is, if everybody could say, this is my own feeling, that if we give the Hamel brothers this and it's it, they would do it. But it's the fear of the unknown. You know, part of me would want some answers from the Department of Planning and Development. I mean, what I've tried to do in other motions is when we look at each business corridor, is to really come together with an agreement as to what can happen. Route 38 is an example of this and that. On one side of the street, you can have a box store, the other side, you can't have whatever. And I want to see in the different neighborhoods, you know, such organization of planning that business people will know what to expect and the neighbors will know what to expect. So I have some difficulty tonight because the thing is, I think what you have is two good business people who want to do the right thing. And should we go on and let them provide more information? But at the same time, you have neighborhood people who, although they're not hundreds here, they have effectively, come before this council with opinions from a group of people. I mean, they truly do represent the neighbors, and they do work hard for them. I think we all know that. I think there are some issues that happen that are far more emotional than others. But I think the issue here is a lot of people care for the Hamel brothers and really, everybody wants to hope it goes away, but those things don't go away. They're here. So I'm conflicted myself at this particular point because there's two issues. Good business people who want to do the right thing. I do believe that. You have the neighborhood representation, and they're speaking out for the neighborhood, for the defense of the neighborhood, because they're not sure as to what will happen down the road. What protections do they have? We know that's true. Attorney Eliades spoke to the issue of there will be zoning changes, weeks from now, or next week there could be a zoning change, or whatever. But I would like to see some way where we could do something like this, but if you can't assure anybody anything, but you can at least design a plan that could satisfy both sides. I'm not sure how to do it. I know it requires a lot of discussion. I know it requires real attention to detail and what groups can do what they can. I'd actually like to have the city manager maybe make some comment on how he sees this as a problem or any suggestions that could be made. Don't want to put you on the spot, Mr. Manager, but you're there.
Well, it's ultimately up to the city council to make the decision, whether you vet that in a subcommittee like you vet so many other issues before considering in the whole is a decision to be made.
Anything else? All right, Council Leahy, then Council Leary.
All right, thank you. This is a tough one. I was at the Pawtuckaville monthly meeting. I heard the presentation. I went up to the site myself and looked around. And I got to be honest that, and I've been to a few things around the city where these come up to the planning board, and I've checked out numerous projects around the city. I'm concerned with what the neighbors have to say. It's their neighborhood. But on my site visit to the area, I saw what they did. When they purchased the house on Magnolia Street, I believe, they did give that buffer zone to the house, and that says something about the business. They've always run a good business. They try to keep the place clean, and from what I saw on the drawings, it's going to greatly improve that corner. The plantings, the repavement, and I just think that they deserve the opportunity to be heard. I'm not saying I'm going to vote for it, I'm not saying I'm voting against it, but they deserve, because they've been a good neighbor, run a good business, they've stuck in the city of Lowell for over 50 years. If there's one more opportunity for them to be heard, to go to the subcommittee, then I think they should have that opportunity. I thought, I understand what the decision of the planning board is, but they gave us two answers, and quite frankly, they weren't very strong. So I think they deserve to be heard one more time. So tonight I'll vote to send it to the subcommittee. But again, it's not a final decision. That's what we're here for. It got to this point, and we're going to do our due diligence to serve both parties and listen to the argument. Thank you.
Council Leary.
Thank you. I think Mr. Leahy said a lot of what I was thinking of in terms of supporting why to go to a zoning subcommittee. I think another area, though, if the vote were held tonight, I wouldn't vote for it. And the simple reason is this is one of our few areas where you have suburban single-family homes, and that's something that you really need to protect if you want to keep a city with a strong livelihood, a strong, high quality of living. I'm definitely going to want to listen to it. I think the motion was made to go to the zoning subcommittee, so I'll support that. I'm incredulous about forward challenging an area that we need to protect. If you're looking at it from a pure economic standpoint, we're always trying to bring business into the city, so it sounds like it's almost, a statement's completely different. But if you want people to stay in the city, you want people who really move from the acre, move from the lower highlands into single-family homes, because ultimately that's your tax base. That's your growth. That's where folks really support the strength of the community. The Hamel brothers, I went to that presentation for at the Pawtucketville Citizens Council as well, neighborhood group. And the Hamel brothers did an excellent presentation. And the feedback was cordial, and no one's ever said anything negative about them as a business. It's something I think is extraordinary. And I hope we should have other businesses that are like that throughout the city, trying to improve their spot of land, as it were. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, what do we want to be as a city? Do you want people to stay in the city, or do you want them to move to the suburbs because they're going to have a single-family home? We don't have a gigantic single-family home stock. I will support going to a zoning subcommittee, but I am, at this point in time, really not in favor of making that change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I seconded the motion for a discussion, and I attended the neighborhood meetings. I support the neighborhood organizations because they're eyes and ears for us in the city. But what I think we need to do, and I agree with Deb Forgione, quite frankly, because she wants to be consistent. There were businesses that try to locate in Pawtucketville, and they're not consistent with the neighborhood character. And it's important to be consistent. So when you oppose one business for a number of reasons, then it's equally important to do the same thing across the board, and I believe in that. This particular business, and we heard it throughout the entire evening, they're a good business. Councilor Larry made a good point. We want good businesses. We have a lot of fly-by-night businesses that come in, and they're not good neighbors. They're not good corporate neighbors. We have one right in Pawtucketville, NL. But here is a good neighbor, and I don't think this is the complete change in what has taken place. And I think it's important to have Mr. Hamel, if my colleagues will indulge, to come up, because he's not increasing volume. And I think a lot of the concerns that came from the neighbors at the PCC meeting were not a result of this business, but just in general. And it's parking, it's cut through traffic, it's noise, all a result of, I think, the river walk, and the concerts and the motorcycle night and just general business. And I understand it's a residential neighborhood, but what was explained at that meeting to me is important, that the volume of the building is only so big, and there's only so many cars that you can repair and fix. So it's not a business expansion, it's just putting vehicles that are being worked on, taking them out of the front and putting them in the back to make the business look more attractive. So, Mr. Hamel, is that correct? Can you come up? Mr. Mayor, is it all right if he comes up to speak? Because I know he has counsel, but I think you're the owner, And when you spoke at the PCC, I thought you brought information that was important.
Counselor, let me just, before we even get started on this, let me just point out that the public hearing is open and closed for both sections, so everybody's had their opportunity to speak. For this part of the meeting now, it's questions that you ask for anybody in the room, and
Okay,
that's okay.
I have a question for
It isn't
Mr.
that
Hamel,
somebody
Mr.
can
Mayor.
go on for 10 minutes about their business. It's answering questions. from
Sure, it's a
you.
question to Mr. Hamel, right? I already posed a question.
So can you repeat the specific question so I can?
Yeah, the intent is not to expand the building or the business, it's just to organize. It's not, you can't produce, the volume's not going to increase, which, more volume, more cars, more traffic.
Exactly. That's exactly right. The nature of the business is not changing. It's been the same for over 50 years. So we're not looking to change the nature of it. The building, we're not looking to expand the building. So the volume, we're pretty much at maximum volume, but due to that fact, there's a lot of cars that we're trying to make more orderly looking, more organized, make some landscaping adjustments to make it look, once we create more space, we can give up some of the parking in the front to make it look a little more beautiful, because as we all know, there's a lot happening in the city on nights and weekends and things, and we're just trying to leave our lot open for the public and so forth. But no, the nature of the business is not changing. At the PCC meeting, the only opposition was specifically because of the volume of traffic. And to speak to that point, the volume of traffic's not going to change. Our volume's not going to increase. It's just the reorganization of our property.
Right. So right now you have a residential, you own one, and you fix it up, and the other one you deeded a piece of property to.
Right, we actually own, directly behind the business, we own 2 residential
Right.
pieces.
So what's the expansion? How big of a swath are we? I didn't get that at the meeting.
The actual expansion, the zoning we're looking to change on the short side, on the Magnolia side, is probably about 80 feet, pushing 80 feet back. And on the Stockbridge side, which has the home that we want to take down and use that for parking, that goes back about 100 feet. And that's the area where we have given to the Camporis family that buffer, 25% of the lot when we bought that in 96.
Okay.
We gave them. So there's a buffer there. So we're looking to go back less than 100 feet on one side and about 100 on the other side.
Okay. Well, I think these are the questions, and more questions that will unfold, and so I'll support send it to the zoning subcommittee. Thank you.
Are you Council Belanger?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very sensitive petition. There's no two ways about it. Prior to getting elected, I served on the Board of Appeals for 10 years and worked on many difficult petitions such as this. But I'll start off by saying Councilor Alaides and Theodoros worked in front of that board on several dozens petitions, if not 100. And I've never known them to bring a negative petition, anything that would negatively impact the neighborhood in that time span. Although there are no plans, there are no definitive plans, I can understand why it hasn't gotten any legs to this point. People cannot approve what they can't see. And I'm hoping drawings and plans are sort of imminent, so the neighborhood knows the finished product, and the land use boards know the finished product, along with this council. So I'm not supporting anything either way. I certainly can't vote on something I can't see. But what I do know and believe strongly is that the Hamel brothers has been there for 3 generations, with no infractions, I might add, according to the building department. They have been an outstanding community business, serving a neighborhood very well, and I think strongly that they've earned the right to at least be heard. I don't know. I don't know much about the petition. I got a vision what they want to do, but I'd like them to have the opportunity to have plans made and go through a process, sit with the neighborhood, as long as the neighborhood is in tune every step of the way. I think that's certainly going to be part of the process, and let the chips fall where they may from there. But they've earned that right, in my opinion, to at least be heard. Again, not supporting anything one way or the other at this point, but they've earned it. Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Mayor.
Council. Council Samaras?
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. I support what Council Belanger stated, that the people of Pawtuckaville really haven't seen plans. There were no plans. There was a discussion on what those plans could be. I would generally support, any presentation made by a neighborhood group and what they would favor. But I really would like to add, but I believe we should support sending this to the subcommittee. But I'd also like to request that the Department of Planning and Development review this themselves, if possible, and be able to make a presentation as to what they see as the future of that area. I think the people of Pawtuckettville need to have some idea of what they can anticipate down the road. Department of Planning and Development, they don't have a crystal ball, but they know pretty much what we should be doing for economic growth in the city, but also what we should be doing to ensure that our neighborhoods are well-kept and are together, and that businesses also are able to thrive. So I'd like to, request that that type of information also be presented when the Hamill brothers present their plans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Milanazzo.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager or the city clerk. If this in fact does go to the zoning subcommittee, I would like some assurance that people do get notified when the meeting is, and that we work on the list either from the Pawtuckettville Citizens Council, or we take a radius of 1,000 feet from the property, just to make sure that people do get notified when and where the meeting is. So I'd like some assurance that that does happen. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, Council Mercy.
Thank you. Lastly, let me just say, I tend to rely on the expertise of the planning department, the zoning ZBA, whoever we refer it to, and then they bring a recommendation back. I was willing to vote on this tonight in accordance to what I did see. But if there's not enough information, and I always like to be fair, and if something is left out to kind of compromise here, it's not saying that the neighborhood group is wrong. I think they have a legitimate concern here. I don't like to see the character of any neighborhood being, diminished, but I do like to see people have a fair chance, and if that means to come before another board and try to bring your message forward, I think that in the best interest of everyone involved, not saying which way I'm going, but maybe further discussion is imminent, and I think it's needed, and I would support the zoning subcommittee.
All right, so Council Rook, but just 1 second. Just as a point of order, this is a public hearing that's ended, and so we don't want to have a second public hearing. So the proper motion, I believe, Councilman Milanazzo, if there's no objection, would be to suspend the public hearing pending a recommendation from the subcommittee on zoning, and that that recommendation, that the zoning subcommittee also be in touch with the city clerk about who should be notified, and that the city manager make sure that the Division of Planning and Development is in attendance at the meeting to give an idea of what they envision for the neighborhood going forward. Is that okay with you?
No objection.
And that's okay with you, Councilor Elliott? It's a second or a motion?
Well
Okay.
said. Well
Councilor
said.
Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question to Attorney Ladies, if you could. Why not go forward tonight? What's the difference between having the hearing tonight and voting on it, and then waiting for a subcommittee? Yeah, why the reason for the delay? Why are we delaying it? What's the reason why we don't have the full hearing tonight, and why there's not a vote on it tonight?
Very clearly, because we didn't get a chance to tell our story, the real story. And Counselor, I want you to understand that our planning department never got a chance to review this. And they know nothing other than there was a request to change the zoning. And so they had no idea what it was. They made their letter they gave their letter the day of the meeting. So I agree. That's why I said, we want the planning department to see this. We want them to hear it and understand it, and that's what we're hoping for, Counselor. I hope that answers your question.
Well, it's my other question. I mean, isn't that what the public hearing is for? To state your case and make your request? I mean, I see paintings and maps and drawings of what you hope to do, and we are in a public hearing, so I'm just curious, we do have people for and opposed it here. Why are we pushing it off again?
Well, maybe I'm missing the point. You're saying you should vote on the
I'm just saying that it seems like everybody that's here concerning the proposal is here. So just curious of why are we putting it off for? Like I said, we still haven't seen any maps or photos of the proposed area, which it does seem like you do have them here tonight. I guess I'm just looking for why the delay. Sure. It seems like you do have your information here tonight to go forward. So, I do see maps and photos and so forth of the proposed area. No? Okay.
After the planning board voted it down without any other information, because we weren't able to submit any at that point, we then went to the Hamels and I'm going to say sadly, because they spent a lot of money to have this rendering made up so that people could start to see what they'd like to do. So it wasn't until after the planning board, they never saw the rendering. George, can you just raise that up for the council? This was just an initial idea of what we wanted to do. Since that time, I mean, there's so many other things we'd like to do there, but we never got to develop that. And that's why I'm saying, give us the chance, let us go there, and let us meet with the planning department and the subcommittee, and let us develop the things. Let planning and development will have plenty of good suggestions and ideas. For example, the sidewalk should be fixed and changed there. Now, is that our responsibility? I don't know. And I'm glad you asked me the question, because one other thing that I think should be made clear. There are provisions that can be made in a zoning change, contract provisions that say you would change it, but you can and can't do this. And those are, and conditions, contract provisions and conditions that say you can do that, but you'll never do this. You'll never get another inch of space here. You can't put flags up or this or that or whatever. And that sits with the land, and it also has an effect on the subsequent people as well.
Yeah, my main concern is, dragging the neighbors out again for another, to have them come to a public meeting. That's my main concern of just, if we're here and ready to go. But if you do have more information or more changes to make, that's fair enough. So thank you.
I can guarantee you, Counselor, that if we can't get an agreement with all the parties at the subcommittee, we'll just walk in and concede. You won't have to worry about it again.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, the clerk would like to be heard on notification.
Notice element, Council Milanazzo, you spoke about the notice element. My obligation will be when the meeting is set under the open meeting laws, I will post that meeting, the notice of that meeting, the reason for that meeting. It'll be the petitioner's obligation if they want an extended notice to the neighbors and the groups to do that. That's on their expense, and I think they understand that, so some type of affidavit to show the mailing has, and when we'll be in contact to set the schedule and stuff. But my obligation would be posting it under the open meeting laws. And in this situation, I think the petitioner realizes that any other further notice, Council, would be the obligation of the petitioner. And I'm sure you
Understood and
understand that.
certainly agreed. I'd be glad to, absolutely. I want everybody to know and hear what they're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The chair would just point out to the chairman of the subcommittee that I think it would be possible to have the subcommittee meeting at the Wang School, or the Pawtuckaville School up there. I believe that has.
Can it be
LTC.
televised?
I think it can, but, you'd have to check that out, but I think it can be up there. Anyways, it's just a suggestion.
Okay.
It's not, you're the chairman, so, any further discussion? All right, once again, the motion is to recess the public hearing pending a recommendation from the zoning subcommittee.
Roll call.
No other discussion. We have a roll call. Roll call.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milanazzo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Okay, the next public hearing is an ordinance to create one crime analyst. It's a grant-funded position, and establish the salary in the police department. We'll open up the hearing on behalf of those who are in favor. The proponents, anybody who wishes to speak in favor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you, Superintendent Taylor. This is very good news. Once again, our grant and our research and development component of the police department that actually operates for both the police and the fire department under the direction of Mary Ann Bellata, has done a tremendous job. We applied for a federal grant through the Department of Justice, the Office of Violence Against Women, and we were successfully awarded a $450,000 grant for 3 years. The significant parts of the grant this evening, 2 positions, one for a victim witness advocate and one for a crime analyst that will work in our family services unit. Both of these positions, if the council approves, will be grant funded, and they will allow us to redirect uniformed personnel into the field to investigate crimes against women, and the victim witness advocate will work with the victims of crime and alleviate those duties from sworn personnel that will be able to be in the field and investigate it. Likewise, the crime analyst will also work in place of uniformed personnel. They will work and try and supply and support our efforts against violence against women, both for our detective unit and for our uniformed personnel in the field. So it's very good news, and I think if we can get these 2 positions approved, it will go a long way towards helping us address these very chronic issues that we have in our community.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, close the hearing on behalf of the proponents and open it up for those who wish to speak in opposition. Anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Opposition? If not, we'll close the hearing on behalf of the opponents, open it up for discussion of the council.
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Milonazo. Discussion on the motion, Council Rourke.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just want to say, it's another more good news, with the grant writer put in place. If I could just ask the city manager, could we just get a report of how many grants have been applied for by the grant writer since that position has been put in place for both the fire and the police? Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Okay, the next matter is a public hearing in order to create one victim advocate. It's a grant funded position and establish a salary in the police department. Hearing's open for those who wish to speak in favor. David, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, to the City Council. Same grant, same conditions as I previously discussed. This is the other position. This is, goes along with the crime analyst and the victim witness advocate. So I'd appreciate your support.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak in favor? In favor, in favor. Hearing none, we'll close that part of the hearing for the proponents and open it up for those who wish to speak in opposition. Anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition? 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 Close the hearing for the opponents. Open it up for discussion of the council. We have a motion approved by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Rourke. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, roll call.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
9 yeas.
The next item is a public hearing to amend the ordinance, Chapter 9, Article 10, the Lowell Veterans Commission. Anybody who wishes to speak in favor?
Hi, John McDonald, 8 Wilder Ave, member of the Lowell Veterans Commission. Just briefly, just wanted to say that I think this is a good opportunity, and I think that it's a good sign in general of the amount of interest that people have in the Veterans Commission. So I would like to express my positive thoughts and hopes that you guys will approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, we'll close the hearing on behalf of those who wish to speak in favor and open it up for opponents. Anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition? 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 Hearing none, we'll close the hearing on behalf of the opponents and open it up for discussion of the council. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, thank you, Mr. Manager, for bringing this forward. I know I filed a motion a while ago. Attending the meetings and seeing the increased interest, which is a good thing. So thank you for expediting this and bringing this forward. There were members who were waiting to apply and become part of this commission. So, thank you.
Is that a motion to approve, Council Elliott?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Second by Council Belanger. Discussion on the motion. Roll call.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Okay, that does it for the public hearings this evening. If we can go back to item 4.2, which is the communication that was discussed briefly during one of the public hearings. It's a communication from the planning board. Chair would entertain a motion to accept the communication and place it on file. So moved by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Leary. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next is a communication from the city manager requesting out-of-state travel for one person for the health department. Do we have a motion to approve? We have a motion approved by Council Rourke, seconded by Council Elliott. Discussion? Roll call.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
9 yeas.
What's the next one? We got one of these. 5.2. Okay. The next is a vote to transfer $40,000 to fully staffed polling locations for the presidential primary in the elections department. Waive the full first reading and go to a second reading. The order to transfer $40,000 to fully staffed polling locations in the presidential primary in the elections department. Chair will entertain a motion to approve. We have a motion to approve by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Samaras. Discussion on the motion. Roll call.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Okay, we have a vote to transfer $240,000 to provide adequate funding for increased surgery costs for the police and fire active in the law department. Waive the full first reading and go to a second reading. The order to transfer $240,000 in funds to provide adequate funding for increased surgery costs. We have a motion to approve. Motion approved by Council Leary, seconded by Council Elliott. Discussion on the motion. Roll call.
Council Samaras.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Before,
Excuse me.
just a quick question, and it probably don't have an answer tonight, but talking about stopgap and excess insurance, I know we're self-insured. I know you guys look at the reinsurance market, what have you, which is, tightening up, which is a good thing. It's something as you get into this, as we budget, is something we definitely need to look at. And I don't know if you have any updates or thought process as to how that might work or how it may not be applicable or financially possible for us.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we're looking into those possibilities right now to see if there's some type of a stopgap measure we can get to cover unexpected high amounts of surgery in 1 year. So we are looking into that right now.
Just in going forward, as we get into the financials, we can take a look, not to bog down it, but take a look at the losses that you actually have closed. Look at a closing ratio. From what I understand, you got a pretty good closing ratio. We should be telling people the story instead of $250,000 million going up in reserves. We're also taking a look at how many of these cases actually stay open, how fast we put them into disposition. What are the trouble cases, where we see some issues. Obviously don't need names, but looking at the actual dollars and cents. Because obviously it trends. Everything's different. Your workforce gets a little bit older. You're going to have increased costs in workers' comp, what have you. So taking a look at these measures, but then also telling the story that you're working through that process, I think would be valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Roll call.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott. Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Under orders from the city manager, we have an order for a 60-day order for various locations. We have this. That's all right here. Once again, we'll waive the first reading and go to the second reading. And pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances in the City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion approved by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Milonazo. Discussion on the motion. Hearing no discussion, roll call.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercier.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke. 8 yeas.
Next, we have an ordinance from the city manager, an ordinance to amend Chapter 171, Article 4, entitled Nuisance Posting. Chair would entertain a motion to refer to a public hearing for March 8th, 2017 at 7 p.m. We have a motion to do that by Counsel Belanger, seconded by Counsellor Elliott. Discussion on the motion. Counsel Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to thank Inspectional Services and the Manager's Administration for acting on this ordinance, which directly focuses on minimum maintenance for businesses in commercial areas, which was pretty much non-existent. We've had problems all throughout the city here in the downtown and all the neighborhoods, recently on Princeton Boulevard, with a troubled business up there. And this addresses a lot of those concerns with maintenance and overgrowth of weeds and grass, sidewalk upkeep, storage of putting stock in windows and storefronts where it's visible. I think it's outstanding, I really do. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hear a little more in depth for the council and the folks at home on this, either by the manager or Eric Slagle, I see is here as well. So I think this is great news for the neighborhoods and the businesses.
The motion before us, Counsel, is just to refer to a public hearing. It's sometime in
Can we
March,
comment?
is that-
All right.
We can do that if we, Mr. Manager?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd ask Mr. Slagle, would you just briefly describe the two ordinances that are here to be referred to a public hearing are both related to the minimum standards for commercial ventures, correct?
Yes, Mr. Manager, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the council. In response to an earlier motion from the council, from Councilor Leahy, and to some issues that the administration has seen through in commercial properties around the city, we drafted a comprehensive ordinance to attempt to target the specific issues that we've seen at some of these addresses. The first vote, the first ordinance that you see amended in the city council agenda is to deal with nuisance postings. One of the complaints, the issues that we see a lot of is businesses that are posting on public spaces, on signs, on telephone poles, signs that are not allowed to be there. This is a very specifically targeted ordinance that allows us to cite the sign owner and gives us a presumption that the name and the address on the sign is the owner of the sign, so we don't have to worry about proving who put the sign up there. It automatically gets targeted to the business. The bulk of kind of the meat of the proposals in the second ordinance, where we are changing some of the commercial minimum maintenance standards and adding standards that hadn't previously existed in the City of Lowell ordinances. They include, as Councilor Belanger noted, things like weeds and overgrowth, which apply not just to commercial, but also to residential properties that abut city sidewalks, and also there's a section here that deals with vacant lots and keeping them from becoming overgrown. There also are specifically targeted sections dealing with commercial minimum maintenance in places like the alleys downtown, the alleys in other parts of the city, places the responsibility on the commercial property owners for cleaning the sidewalk and in the street a certain distance away from the curb, and puts the impetus on them to have to clean that up. And also, as Councilor Belanger mentioned, a significant section that deals with the accumulation of junk that's no longer allowed on commercial spaces. I do think this will give us some more options for enforcement of properties that have been a problem in the city. For things like 43 Market Street, where the display windows were challenging in the downtown, there's a specific section that deals with display windows. For properties like Princeton Boulevard, it gives us some greater tools to be able to respond quicker to issues that were being generated from complaints in the neighborhood.
Good, okay. All in favor of the motion? All opposed, so voted. Next item is a ordinance to amend Chapter 227, Property Maintenance, Article 1, Minimum Standards. Chair would entertain a motion to refer that to a public hearing for March 8th, 2017 at 7 p.m.
I thought you said 2017. I apologize.
You know what? I did say, that's what it says here, 2016. 2016. A motion is sent to public hearing by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Rourke. Discussion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next item is the subcommittee report. We have a report from the Finance Subcommittee for February 23rd, 2016. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will try to be brief because there was a lot of material covered in the subcommittee meeting, and I thought it was a very informative and productive meeting. Mr. Manager, in attendance were subcommittee members, myself, Council Larry, and Council Milonazo, also Council Mercier, Councilor Belanger, and Council Samaras was in attendance with the city manager and his financial team. And so there were 3 items essentially that we spoke of this evening. First was a status report of FY15, an update on where we are with FY16, and we discussed the independent audit. So again, just briefly, because there were a lot of good questions, a lot of subject matter discussed. FY15, they've closed out year end, and there was a surplus, and that was good news. That was free cash that has been used to pay off some of the snow and ice deficit and increase our reserve funds. Our reserve funds are at their highest. Certainly, that contributes to better ratings from bond companies. Let me just move right into FY16. Revenue is on target. Expenditures, keeping an eye on them. Snow and ice. Believe it or not, we budgeted 1.3. We're at about 800,000 plus another 100,000 for the last storm. So we've not exceeded our appropriation, which is good news. We talked about the school contract a little bit and the impact that will have on FY17. Manager indicated that, looking at local aid figures, we are seeing an increase in general aid. Chapter 70 is still uncertain. And I hope my colleagues will jump in, but I'm trying to just give a real tight recap of the meeting. Questions are asked on overtime. City manager is going to get back to us. Police is holding well. Fire department has increased as a result of some retirements, but we do have backfills already through the academy on that issue. So I think that's pretty much for FY17. Lastly, the audit. We discussed many issues in the audit. Mr. Healy was also in attendance. We appreciate all of your help. But he went through essentially we received a management letter, and we also received a report from the city manager on responses and actions that are being implemented to address those. I don't think I need to go through all of them because there were quite a few. But is this report online, Mr. Manager, just for those that may want to take a look at it, the Management Corrective Action Plan? Or could we put it online somewhere?
We'll put it online, so.
Maybe the clerk's office or under financial issues?
We'll make sure we put it online.
I think this is significant. It talks about all receivables. It talks about OPED investments, and responding to all the issues. There are no material weaknesses. It was a good audit, but I think as Mr. Baldwin mentioned, it's a $364 million budget. So there's always areas that we can look at. That's why we have audits, to look at departments, processes, and how can we make it better. So it was a clean audit, as Mr. Healy mentioned, and I think the city, there was sort of consensus. The city we're in good financial standing. We're stable, but we look to improve on any areas that we can. I think one important item to mention is your memo, Mr. Manager, that you have reactivating the vacancy review committee. So any jobs that are vacant as a result of retirements or people leaving, they're going under additional scrutiny to make sure that we need it, because this resulted in savings in FY15. Grant, same thing. We receive significant grants each year, and there's a grant administrative oversight committee to ensure that we are still receiving all these grants and that the positions are being filled appropriately. So same thing with expenses and overtime. You'll be coming back with a report on the fire department overtime and other departments. So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, and my colleagues, that is, it is a very tight synopsis of a lot of issues that were discussed at that finance subcommittee. So I submit that motion was made by Council Milanazzo, second by Council Larry, to submit FY15, 16, and the independent audit for acceptance and report of progress. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the report as a report of progress, second by Council Leary. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all.
Just
Council
real quick,
Leary.
just to be concise, I think it's very impressive when you have a rounded up to a $365 million budget. Coming from the school side, working with the finances there, I'm impressed with the collaboration between everybody working together, being creative. I like the proactive steps, taking the initiative, moving forward with some of the audit reports. And we're already seeing an increase in investments from just one item that they presented to you for changes. I think that the big challenges are obviously the pension increases we talk about briefly in this subcommittee. Some of the challenges we have in terms of the net school spending. I think it's impressive that we're at 5.1, but we need to kind of tease out how much of that actually is charter school monies as well, because that's a significant impact that's being debated right now on the state level of how that works and how that could actually impact the actual urban school here in Lowell that we have. That's a pretty good school system. Talking about other areas that we can improve, I think you guys have addressed that. And again, I think it's a good shot. I think the discussion points by all members and all the people who were there were pretty impressive. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Mercia.
I think that people that are in a position to manage the city would probably have an idea as to how we can improve the finances or whatever. So through you to the interim two city managers who attended this finance subcommittee meeting, I was wondering if they had any input or suggestions on fiscal 17 budget that we would be putting together. Is there any way that we could save money or improve the services? Or do you have any, because you've been very quiet and I want you to get your money's worth. So do you have any suggestions?
You don't want to ask a Republican how to save money.
Nancy, you're sitting in your brother's seat. Do you have any? And don't say the word raise because we don't want to hear it.
I think at this time, I'd like to refrain and continue to work with the finance team that the office has put together.
Are you learning
move
something
forward.
from this meeting this evening? You know how hard and difficult it is to be city councilors then, right?
I
Yes,
fully
you do.
sympathize.
You do. Thank you so much. Thank you for your presence
I
here.
applaud all of you for doing this week after week, and I can assure you, I will never be sitting where you are.
Thank you, Councilor Mercia. Is there any further discussion?
Mr.
All
Mayor?
in favor, all opposed, so voted.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilor Roy.
Yes, a couple of things
Sorry.
regarding to our reports. On March 14th, we're going to hold the Neighborhood Services Subcommittee. That'll be on a Monday night, 7 p.m. at the Temple Emmanuel on West Forest Street. One of the things of discussion will be the Highland neighborhood issues. Manager Murphy, Superintendent Taylor, and our Building Commissioner Sean Shanahan will be there. Also on the agenda will be the Coelho place of business on, I believe, Princeton Boulevard and Baldwin Street. That should be addressed that evening as well. And if I could, Mr. Mayor, just quickly, today at the Lowell District Court, we had our first annual drug court graduation ceremonies. The entire substance abuse subcommittee was represented, starting with Chairman Belanger and Councilor Mercia, who was there as well. What we did today, Mr. Mayor, was 5 people went through the 18 to 24-month drug court process, and they graduated today. The master of ceremonies at that graduation was Judge Brennan, who paid particular tribute to the city of Lowell, Manager Murphy and his team, and Superintendent Taylor, saying how integral they were to get the drug court up and running. So I just wanted to take a quick second to acknowledge those that did graduate today. They went through a very difficult program and process, and they're well on their way to becoming upstanding citizens of Lowell. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under subcommittees, the Personnel Subcommittee, which was scheduled for last Tuesday, has been rescheduled. I checked with the city clerk for March 8th at 5:30. That's okay with my colleagues on the Personnel Subcommittee, March 8th.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did attend as well with Councilor Belanger and Councilor Rourke. We had the District Attorney, Marion Ryan, who was there, along with Sheriff Peter Katujian, a contingent of police superintendents. Our Superintendent Taylor was there, along with Kelly Richardson. We really had a good turnout. The place was packed in the fourth session chamber. We heard from Ms. Burke, who did a tremendous job mentoring. There actually were 6. 5 were in attendance that graduated. One of them that did not attend because of health reasons was 66 years old, and he was a gentleman that was at home, but he participated in this program as well. Drug addiction knows no age restriction, and the man was 66. But we have 6 people whose lives were changed because of the collaboration of all the parties together. Megan House was involved. Many organizations came together to support the 6 people through counseling and monitoring, and 6 lives will be saved. And it's continuing and continuing, and pretty soon it's that commercial like years ago of Breck. You tell one person tells one person about the shampoo, and it goes on and on and on. And that's what's happening here. And this is a program that is saving lives, and we should be very proud of this. So I was happy that I was able to attend along with the Sheriff's Office. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Leary.
Just next Tuesday, we're going to have the Technology and Utilities Subcommittee at 5:30. We'll have both Verizons there, so it proves to be just a good time. So,
okay.
everybody know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, moving on to petitions, we have under miscellaneous, we have a petition from Edward and David Mulcahy to request permission to discuss the decision regarding water runoff at 494 Bridge Street. We have several speakers. I think we have 3 speakers registered. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I'm one of the co-owners of the property at 494 Bridge Street. We have a presentation. My son is an engineer specialized in fluid mechanics, so he's better versed in presenting this. And we have an illustration to distribute, if I have permission to do that.
Sure.
May I approach?
Sure.
Just for the ease of everybody's eyes.
Thank you. Could you begin by stating your name and address?
Of course. My name's Nathaniel Mulcahy. I live at 33 Middle Street in Gloucester. The property that we're looking at here is, if you look at the photo, this property here was built by my great-grandfather in 1940. It's been in the family ever since. We've been faithful landlords, and 4 generations of maintaining the neighborhood, working on the property, and keeping the business going. Originally, in 1940, Finest was the first grocery store to go into there. They eventually left. At that time, on Bridge Street was the main entrance to the grocery store. Some of you may remember that. I don't. But historically, that was the nature of the store. It was then split into 2 separate stores, and it's remained as 2 separate stores ever since. If you look at the lot, which is about 27,000 square feet, If you look at the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a tree. That tree is a standing memorial to Conrad Gauthier, who was a founder of the Centerville Action Committee. We've maintained that. We keep that as part of our contribution to helping the neighborhood. The lot itself, being 27,000 square feet, slopes from that tree towards this corner here. So it's a downward slope, and everything in that parking lot drains eventually into this corner. If there are any questions, please interrupt me at any time. I'm happy to stop. If you look at how this lot goes, and you think about the surface area of the lot at 27,000 square feet, the roof area, which is the total area occupied by the building, is about 5,000 square feet, or 18.5% of the total area. At the time that the store was separated into two separate stores, the drains from the original building were still on the outside, just over where you can see at this very edge, the entrance of the two stores on the parking lot there. Currently, there's a Tedeschi's and a brand-new laundromat. The drain was in between the entrances of the two doors because originally that wasn't an entrance to the store. The rain poured out, it caused ice, which caused a problem, and two subsequent lawsuits caused my grandfather at the time to then turn the drainage from the roof directly into the sewer, which was allowed at that time, and we understand that it's not anymore. A question? No. Times have changed. We're more aware of the burden that rainwater has on sewage treatment plants, and you're not allowed to drain directly into the sewer anymore. So we've been asked to adjust accordingly. What we are petitioning the council and the city to do is to allow us to, we understand that there is an exigency on the part of the city that we adhere to the new rules. We don't want to overtax the sewage treatment system. And so to redirect the rain, if you look at the photo here, you'll see there's some standing water up along the upper edge there from where all the water used to drain to that side and then outside. Our proposal is to then take as a solution to meet the city's requirement as presented by the city engineer, to then, instead of going into the sewer or restoring it to what it was prior to that, which created a hazard by having ice formation at the entrance to the store or having it go to either of the sidewalks, which would be a hazard to the pedestrians, is to then redirect the rain to gather it along the front end of the store and then down just to the side of this entrance, so that it would then, as it was originally, go out into the parking lot, but in an area that wouldn't cause any risks to pedestrians or traffic, and would then therefore flow in the natural flow pattern that is already existing in the parking lot and as it was originally planned, but with the improvement of removing the risk of ice buildup in pedestrian walkway areas.
There's an additional point. The original water flow down now could extend down towards 5th Street, and this is a drainage gutter along the sidewalk, and there's a storm drain entrance at this point marked by the red arrow, which is where the water normally would flow, except until my grandfather had it directed into the sewer, or some subsequent owner, possibly my
No,
father.
that was your father. It was enough to
Right. So in other words, it would just be restoring the flow of rainwater from the roof onto the pattern that existed before everything started and the store was divided.
Wait.
Okay, thank you. We have one more speaker, I think, registered to speak on this.
Okay.
My name is Anne Marie Page. I reside at 26 Fremont Street in Lowell. I sit on the executive board of the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group, and I'm the current president of the Citywide Neighborhood Council. Today, we're a little concerned about 494 Bridge Street. In Centerville, we have many blighted buildings, and thanks to the city manager's new program, NEED, we are cracking down on irresponsible landlords. This is not one of those cases. The Mulcahy family is our poster child for good landlords and good neighbors. The property is kept meticulously clean. We have a memorial garden. We are now in the plans, because of this remodeling on that other side of the building, another garden will be set up also. We have 400-watt lights coming off the roof. The building was just newly painted last year. There are cameras on the site. The Mulcahy's check with the neighborhood group. Is everything being kept clean? Everything being picked up? Everything being shoveled? Right? I mean, this is a poster child for somebody you want to own property in your neighborhood. So now, all of a sudden, one of the tenants, which is like we call it Tedeschi, 7-Eleven, whatever they call themselves in corporate headquarters, but they want to do over this half of the building. The other half of the building was just done over for the new laundromat. So they want to do over their half of the building and make it look spiffy, so they put everything together and they go before planning and everything and do, follow all the rules, which is good. And then that's when they find out, oh my goodness, we have rainwater coming off the roof. That rainwater's been coming off that roof since before World War II. We've managed to live with. All of a sudden, we have a crisis and a $75,000 bill to get the water off the roof. I don't know. I don't really understand it. I know about nasty sewage, but I never knew there was such a tither over rainwater. So anyways, I think it's a state government, let's clean something up. And $75,000, I suppose you could do a lot of cleaning. We would really like to see the city engineers and the city work with the Mulcahy family, find out where or how, what we're going to do with this rainwater, the best way to do it, and try not to break the bank while we're trying to do it. And that's what we want. We want some help to work with, and Nathaniel has showed you some plans that might be workable. And we know Lisa DeMeo, our city engineer, is always willing to work with somebody. So that's what we're asking for. I guess a rain bucket isn't going to work this time. But it just makes me very, very nervous when I heard this, because now I'm getting nervous thinking this council just voted we're going to start to clean up Bridge Street and get it all fixed up while we've got that whole highway thing torn apart. We thought, that's fabulous. What are we going to do now? I don't want to find out that every single person that owns a building on Bridge Street's got rainwater on the roof. We'll have a bunch of empty buildings. So we want to find a way to do this, and an economical way to do this. We don't want to break the bank to do this. We know the rain isn't going to go away, but we got to find a way to tell it where to go, because evidently it doesn't know where to go. So we just want a little cooperation, a little help, a little advice, and see what we can do. We have good neighbors, and we certainly don't want to lose them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, do you want to respond to the petition?
First of all, it's important to understand that we never requested this landlord or this owner to do anything on the premises. We never ordered them to do anything on the premises. We're quite satisfied with the drainage system that they have right now. As a matter of fact, the drainage system that they have, a lot of buildings in the city of Lowell have, and we don't bother them about it. What this is, to my understanding, is a request by their new tenant to change the drainage system to suit the new tenant that is coming into the building. And as a result of that, they now want to come and do a new drainage system. So when you do a new drainage system, you have to comply with the state stormwater regulations and the local ordinances, and it's quite a costly endeavor to do. We're willing to work with them, but I think it's important to note, we never asked them to do anything. We never ordered them to do anything. They brought this upon themselves, and now they're faced with the cost because their new tenant wants to change the drainage system. We're not ordering them to do anything. With that said, we'll be very willing to work with them, but I want the council to know that it was their movement that caused this and nobody else's that caused it.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Council Mercia.
I'm very glad that you came before the council. I did get a call from Ed Mulcahy, and we did speak about this. I did call the manager to find out what way we could do to help him. And just as you explained to Ed and his relative son, I understood that everything was resolved. So that's why I was shocked to see this on the agenda, because I thought that you had gotten that message. I'm sorry that you had to come down here, but the city didn't order anything like he said. He explained that to me as well. Your tenant is creating all this rigmarole by wanting to get involved and change it. It has nothing to do with the city. And if someone wants to, like the manager explained, redo it, then they have to redo it to the specifications and the environmental protection and all the codes that are new now. So it looks like the city is the bad guy and we're not. And so it isn't that I didn't want to help you. I thought you got an explanation and understood that.
I think there's been some misinformation, or we're sort of talking past each other. The new tenant looked at the toilets. There are 2 toilets in 2 bathrooms in the basement, one under each one. And his notation of this was, this plumbing is crazy, but just specifically talking about the bathroom toilets and the bathroom plumbing. He wanted to change that around. It would still go into the toilets would still obviously enter into the sewage system. But we received an order basically saying that there was too much runoff from the roof, and it had to be put into cisterns. And as near as I understand it, the coming and going with the new tenant, the store 7-Eleven apparently has architects and engineers that said, well, the way to solve this is obviously put in a big cistern system for the roof water. And so that got forwarded to us, and I didn't bring the original paper with me, but my understanding was that the city had ordered us, if you're going to do that, then you have to have a cistern system costing $75,000 and so on. So if it's just a matter of the plumbing, they can leave the bathrooms just the way they are and continue to feed into the sewage system. It would really be, I think, in everybody's interest if we're allowed to just let water follow its normal path going off the back of the building and entering into the drainage system, the natural drainage system on West 5th Street. Yep.
If I may ask a quick question, Mr. Manager, and honorary managers for the day. Well, they're there, so. Is it correct to understand that if we change nothing, we can leave everything as is?
That's what it seems like.
Excuse me.
Mr. Manager.
Absolutely, yes.
So if we simply because Tedeschi's was purchased by 7-Eleven, so essentially it's the same store but under a different name. If we tell them the plumbing stays the way it is, you've got a very good thing and we haven't changed your rent, you're happy, we're happy, the city is happy, is that a possibility?
Yes.
Mr. Manager.
Yes, it is.
So that means no modification of the roof then? All right.
So case dismissed.
I think that's wonderful.
Right on.
I am delighted to have had this conversation, and it was well worth the drive here.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too.
It's nothing like municipal government, huh?
Absolutely. On an unofficial question, I've never seen a mayor who has to stand up for an entire meeting. Is that standard for Lowell, or?
They're supposed to be getting me a chair, but I think it probably won't come in until the end of my
Okay,
term.
because in Gloucester, we all get to sit for the entire meeting, so.
There's a
Thank
big
you
chair
very much,
behind
everyone. I appreciate it.
All right, so what do you want to do with this? Refer it to the law department, or do you think we just accept it as a communication, place it on file? We have that motion by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Samaras. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Now moving on to City Council motions. The first motion of the evening is by Councilor Elliott. It's to request the City Council establish an ad hoc subcommittee on city charter election issues. Do we have a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. The motion really speaks for itself. I know we've had a number of motions brought up on the city council, and we really don't have a specific subcommittee to deal with election issues per se. So knowing this is presumably not going to be a recurring issue because it's specifically on election issues, I thought it was probably wise to just set up a subcommittee to discuss this, knowing that the subcommittee will subset. I know it was referred to personnel, but personnel is for personnel issues, and we have rules, but that's for, city council rules, so to speak. So I thought I'd file this motion and perhaps have a good and full discussion on specifically election issues. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So just as a point of order, is it your intention, it wouldn't be, you don't envision a standing committee, you're looking for an ad hoc subcommittee, which is usually just for one specific item. And so is it your intent that the items that have been referred to the personnel subcommittee would be sent over to the ad hoc subcommittee?
I think that would make sense. Correct.
Okay.
Or, if any other, you're right, it's for a specific purpose, ad hoc, and then once that work is complete, then the committee usually just
Well, I only bring it up, Councilor.
sunsets.
Yeah, I only bring it up because city charter and election issues is not, that's pretty broad, right?
I think they are interrelated because when you're talking about the election issues of changing requirements, then that affects the charter, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, so would you like to amend your motion to have the matters that are currently before the personnel subcommittee assigned to this committee? I guess that would be.
Oh, my motion is just to set up, I don't think we're trying to beat this thing to death, that there was a couple of motions made by one by Councilor Belanger and one by Councilor Mercy that we set up a subcommittee to deal specifically with those, knowing that it doesn't really deal with personnel or rules.
Okay. Any
So-
further discussion on the motion? Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a good motion. I think the items that are currently before the Personnel Subcommittee dealing with going from signatures from up to 25 signatures, I think is the number that we're looking at. No, 50, up to 50 to 100 signatures.
And primary candidates.
Up to 25, to 25. And then the issue of the salary of the council as well. Those are the issues that was referred. So I think it makes sense to send those items to the new ad hoc committee.
Okay, so
if
would
this
you
gets
like to
voted.
amend the motion to send those items over to the ad hoc subcommittee? I guess that's my question.
Again, once it's established, I would say yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
And so is there a second to the amendment? Second to the amendment by Councilor Mercia. So first we'll vote on the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment? All opposed? The amendment's adopted. And now the main motion, which is to establish an ad hoc subcommittee to deal with the matters that were in the personnel, that are currently under the personnel subcommittee. Discussion on the main motion? All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Next item is a motion by Councilor Elliott as well to request that the City Council discuss changing of ward representation form of government in the city. Do we have a second? We have no second.
Motion
Motion
fails.
fails for lack of a second. Next item of business is by Councilor Rourke. Request that the city manager look into preventative maintenance program for the school, for Lowell school buildings. Do we have a second? Second by Councilor Milonazo. Councilor Rourke.
Mr. Mayor, I think we have a speaker on this.
Okay. Do we have a speaker on this matter?
Mr. Mayor, good evening, councilors. I'm here. My name is Ben Opera. I'm here to speak on behalf of the motion by Councilor Rourke. I am the new chair of the CPC, the newly reconvened citywide parent council. And we've had series of meetings, and our last meeting, the assistant city manager was there, and also Brian Colley was in attendance because we discussed facilities. And it became very imperative that based on the sentiments of most parents that were in the meeting, that this motion be made. And we very much thank Councillor Rock because he was there, and there were other city school committee members that were also in attendance. And we very much thank Councillor Rock for making this motion, and I urge you to vote in favor of it.
Okay,
Thank
you, Mr. O'Para. Any discussion? Councilor Roque.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the presentation that was given a couple weeks ago by Assistant City Manager McGovern and Mr. Curry from the schools was actually very interesting and informative. They spoke about, getting together, the manager getting all sides together and creating a checklist off of Council Mercier's motion that she had filed previously about going through each and every school to see what was needed to be done and how it could be repaired. One of the options that was brought up during the presentation was a preventative maintenance program, whether it's over 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it would be, to try to get ahead of certain things. And obviously, if something of an emergency need comes up that can be dealt with right away, but something that can be looked at, maybe, Mr. Manager, that, preventative measures always saves money in the long run, rather than waiting for something to break down. So it's something we put into place. I know it's a tough task, but I think it was, again, the presentation given by your administration was very good. And, some of the options that were, ideas that were talked about at that meeting, I think were also worthy of bringing in front of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Council Leahy.
Thank you. I guess through you to the maker of the motion also and to the manager. So how does this differ from, when I was there, we had a 5-year capital plan, and I imagine after I left and while Mr. Leary was still there, we have a 5-year capital plan. So is that on the same idea? And I would imagine that, so if the school side has the 5-year plan, does that ever come over to the city side of government? And I just want to make sure we're not recreating the wheel, because I know that we worked hard, over the last few years with Superintendent Lang. And then when I left, I know Mr. Leary picked it up. So I just want to make sure that, I like the motion, obviously, always yelling at, always, trying to keep the schools up. But I just want to make sure that, we do have something in place, so I want to make sure we're working together. So, either one, I guess.
Sure. My understanding of the 5-year of a capital plan are projects that are put in place to be completed over the next 5 years. I think what was being brought forward tonight is a preventative maintenance for all Lowell school buildings that obviously they're owned by the city. In working with conjunction with the school committee, maybe this could also be, Mr. Mayor, could be brought to the school committee as well to be discussed. And again, it's more of a preventative thing where, you don't have things breaking down that need immediate repair. There was one instance where a school that uses 2 boilers is already down to 1, so now there's 1 boiler doing the work of 2. So who knows how much longer that's going to be working. So it's an example of what maybe hopefully can be reached by something like this.
Okay. So I just finish up. I understand what you're saying. I just want to make sure that the way I was looking at it too is sort of the same way you were looking at it, that, we want to make sure that if there's 2 boilers, they're both working. If there's hot water tanks that need to be replaced, they're being replaced, and so forth and so on. So, I support the motion, and I think it's a good plan to keep on task with this. So, thank you.
Thank you, Council Leary.
No, I support the motion as well, and Councilor Mercier's motion. I think that the problem you run into, it costs a lot of money to have preventative maintenance. It is what it is. So we're going to have to make decisions to actually fund what we're trying to achieve. So some of the things that we did when you were on the facilities subcommittee and I was in the school department, we did a tour of facilities. I think the city manager's already done that. You've already reached out, we're proactive. But I thought the things we found when we were walking around were no action. There was multiple tickets put in place. There was no, never mind basic maintenance. It was, not catastrophic, but just embarrassing issues that were prolonged. And I think if we keep focusing on what you're trying to achieve, I think the presentation that you made is a good start. But I think you really need to unfortunately, we're going to have to put money behind all our desires here and making sure it goes forward. And the reason why it's really not done because it costs a lot of money. and a lot of tough decisions are going to need to be made during budgeting. But I do applaud the efforts that you put in. The two motions that we just had recently are positive, and I think we'll get, like anything else, if you're focusing on it, you'll get positive results. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? All opposed? So voted. Next is a motion by Counselor Rourke to request that the city manager provide an inspection of the Lowell Memorial Auditorium pertaining to the upkeep of the building. Seconded by Counselor Leahy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In going to the auditorium over the past couple of years, whether it be for daughters' dance things or more recently the Golden Gloves, I've been stopped by a couple of different people that have had concerns about the building. Was fortunate to take a tour of the building along with Assistant City Manager McGovern last week, and things such as flooring, painting, the lighting, even the staging that was brought to our attention that may need to be hopefully repaired, and of course the bathrooms are the major, I think, hurdle that we're going to face sooner rather than later. We did speak to one of the members of Global that was there and show us around a little bit. They said there are grants being put in place that will hopefully be granted, for lack of a better term, to the auditorium. And so hopefully if we can get in there, see what needs to be done, and through some certain amount of grant opportunities, we can get those fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion? Counselor Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a great motion by Councilor Rourke. I couldn't agree with him more. With the lack of activity in that building, it seems like it's been a while since I've been in there. But it's definitely needed some dire repairs, as we know, and I know this report is not going to be good. And I'm not saying we address this today, but the auditorium should really be considered as far as transferring that property. I know Veteran Services are in there. We don't want any interruption with Veteran Services. It's their building as well. But I think in time, it should be looked at about conveying this building with the dire need, repairs it's going to take. I think we're millions and millions of dollars it's going to take. I don't know who or what. I'm just thinking out loud, but it's something that I think should be looked at in the very near future, so long as Veteran Services are maintained. So I look forward to the report, and I think it's something that we should, again, transferring this building should be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion? Counselor Milonazo and then
Thank you.
Counselor Samaras.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Is the management company still charging the building surcharge fee per ticket? Are we still doing that?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And is that $1 or $2? Do you recall? Two?
Three?
$2. I think it is
I
$2.
think it's $2.
$2.
Okay. And do we have an idea of what the balance of that is? We go. Okay.
We don't have that, but we'll get you
Okay, thank
we'll
you.
get you a sum of what that is
Thank
in
you.
there.
Are you all set, Counselor Milonazo? Okay, excuse me. Counselor Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. When you look at the auditorium, I mean, that's one of the jewels in the city. And, but the motion made by Councilor Rourke is a very good motion. When you look at handicap accessible, it really isn't. You look at restrooms that you have to go down several flights of stairs just to get to the restroom. And there are many things that we want to do in Lowell. When you think of the Songus Arena, that's a venue that holds over 5,000 people to come to an event. The auditorium is a mid-size for this city of approximately 2,500 people to come to an event. In Lowell High School itself can hold 1,100 people for an event. And these are three terrific venues, but the one that needs the most care is the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. We want to see more programs there at that place, at the auditorium. But I think what's happened is when people come in to look at what we have to offer, they're somewhat fearful of coming into it. I think if we can figure out how to attack this problem, how to deal with the issues, the many issues that have to be dealt with, I think down the road we'll have something that we're very proud of. So I support this motion, and I think a lot of effort has to go into this, but I think in the long run it'll be worth it. So I commend you for this motion. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next matter is a motion by Councilor Rourke as well to request that the city manager provide an update regarding past scheduled events at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, as well as scheduled future events. Seconded by Councilor Samaras. Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This topic came up once again when I was on the tour of the building. I did speak, to Ken, who helps run the day-to-day operations of the auditorium, and he was actually encouraged about some of the upcoming events they do have at the auditorium. And Mr. Manager, he's going to ask a request for his group to come in front of the council as a whole to talk about some of the past events, the progression of what they've done over the past 2.5, 3 years, and what they plan on doing going forward. So I think it'd be both informative and hopefully educational to the council to get a report from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If there's no problem with the maker of the motion, through you to the manager, to include when the contract for global management, Global Spectrum expires for management in that building. And in my opinion, why that building has been so dormant is that, we sadly miss Mill City Management for starters, because the reason is they had a promoter. The management company that's in there now is strictly a building manager. There is no promoter in place, and that should have been negotiated at that time. And I think that's the difference. When Pete Lally was, as we know, a spectacular promoter. He kept that building was booming, and the restaurants and businesses around there were flourishing or doing at least better than they are now. And so I think that's the difference. So I look forward to see when that contract expires and future negotiations on that parcel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Mercia.
I'm very disheartened still about the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. I don't hear anything that jumps out at me that makes me think, I want to go there and see that. I'm listening to the radio station in the morning, the local radio station, WCAP, and they're advertising about this events that are taking place in Lexington, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'd like to go there and see that. I don't have that feeling with the auditorium. What is happening? That was once a place that you could see shows that you would see in Boston at a reasonable rate that you could afford for Lowell. And I don't see that spirit there. I don't see that spark. I don't hear of something that I want to say, oh my God, I want to go and see that. I want to see the Blue Man Group. Why don't they come up here? I want to see them. There's nothing that catches my eye or makes me want to go there. And I'll admit they're doing events there. They're having, I don't know if they're having Eastern Star, or I don't know if they're having, rehearsals, dance recitals, things like that. I mean, that's important as well, but there's nothing that grabs the public whereby we want to come down and have a meal, make a night of it, and afford a nice meal at the restaurant and go to the show that's going to take. I don't have it. I don't see it. It's nothing that I'm proud of that I can say is happening. Maybe I'm in the house too much. I don't know, but I don't hear it.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Milanazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. As part of the report, could you include the the contract that we do have with the management company? Because I believe the contract that we had with Mill City, they did a wonderful job, absolutely terrific job, but they also benefited from the concessions. I'm not sure that Global or whoever's managing it actually does benefit from the concessions, so there may be no incentive for them, in my opinion, to be out getting us the shows, because all they're doing is booking, essentially managing the building. They're not benefiting from the concessions. So again, I would think that would be an important piece of information to get. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Leahy.
I just wanted to add to what Councilor Mercia said. It's been a while since I've been there too, and there's just no umph, and there's just nothing that you want to go down there for lately. So I think it's a good motion and look forward to the report.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? All opposed? So voted. The next motion is a motion by Councilor Rourke to request that the city manager have inspectional services provide an update regarding the property at 58 Mammoth Road. Seconded by Councilor Leahy. Discussion on the motion, Council Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, the motion speaks for itself. This is the old Fios on Mammoth Road. You know, the owner has had obviously some terrible luck, both with his business and then, you know, with himself for the past couple of years. So I know that Building Commissioner Shanahan has a rule in place where permits should be pulled in a certain period of time and so forth. So hopefully we can get a report back pretty soon on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next is a motion by Council Rourke and Council Belanger requesting that the city manager provide an update regarding the old water department building on Hampshire Street. It needs a no second. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is sort of a repetitive motion I think I made approximately a year ago, but Councilor Rourke and I were approached by constituents in the neighborhood, and still they don't feel that this building is up to standard, that, you know, the city should be leading by example, and that this is under par, if you will. And, you know, I don't know what we can do with this. It's an old brick building, Mr. Manager, so I don't know if maybe we can look into declaring this surplus property, but I think something needs to happen sooner rather than later. It's been boarded up and dormant for a long time. It's a valuable parcel right there at Butts Eagle Park, but it becomes sort of a magnet for crime and where people could hide, but it's now cambered, and so while we brought attention to it, some good did come out, but still, let's take a look at this parcel, take a good hard look and see what we can do with this and perhaps convey it. And I think it'd be great if we can declare the surplus property, get it out in the private sector, Mr. Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Belanger. Any further discussion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next item is a motion by Council Belanger, request that the city manager provide an update on any development plans for the Jeanne d'Arc Credit Union headquarters on Merrimack Street. Seconded by Councilor Mercia. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, the motion should read former Jeanne d'Arc headquarters on Merrimack Street. That's what I meant to. I think it's my mistake. But, you know, the Jeanne d'Arc had moved, about 2-3 years ago now, and that parcel, I haven't heard anything. It's still sitting there dormant. But I have heard that an additional parcel has been acquired. I think where the White Eagle used to occupy. So now we have a considerable parcel there on Middlesex Street which could pave the way for a huge development. So I'm just curious to know, I haven't heard anything in some time, so I'm just curious to get a report to see the inquiries on that parcel, where we're at, what's going on there. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion? Council Leahy.
I just wanted to add, this is a good motion. I think we've all had motions on this, so I think it's good to get an update and to see what's happening over there. I know that Jeanne d'Arc is trying to be a good neighbor, and they keep trying to keep that parcel clean. So be interesting to see what they're doing. I don't know if it's too late to sell to Lowell 5, but be a good spot for headquarters for Lowell 5.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, and all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is a motion by Council Leary to request that the city manager provide an update on the status of the city dog park. The report should include any issues with the current park, recommendations for different locations if needed, and feasibility of additional parks. Seconded by Council Leahy. Council Leary.
Just quickly, there's a lot of other folks that did all the other work on it, basically, including councilors who are sitting here, Mercier and others, and Councilor Laurie. The key is the waste sewage plant is actually going to be taking that over soon, so we need to start thinking of another dog park. The other part of the motion I think is important because the city is pretty big. A lot of folks do use the dog park where it's located. Wherever you move it, there's going to be locations that are going to be left out. So if you move Centerville, if you move the dog park, I don't know, to the Highlands somewhere, folks who are using it in Centerville won't have one. So I think it's something to take a look at, see if there is any feasibility for another dog park. There's a lot of folks that own dogs throughout the city. I think it's an important thing to take a look at. It might not be the top priority of what we're trying to achieve, but at the end of the day, you know, dogs are cool and they should have exercise and they should do it in a proper forum. So if anything we could do to take a look at that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The last motion of the evening is by Council Leary to request the city manager to review the feasibility of a new crosswalk on Stevens Street between Westchester and Midland Streets. Seconded by Council Milonazo. Council Leary.
Just quickly, Stevens Street's obviously a busy area. Most of the crosswalks, one's up on the corner of Parker, the other one's down by the 99. To take a look at, because you do have students who are actually going to other schools, especially with the changes in the special ed requirements with the Lowell Public Schools. People are being bused at different locations, so they are required to cross Stevens Street. Also, the LRTA coming down. You know that city manager is walking there in that area, that there probably would be a need for it. A lot of folks have come up to me requesting that. I think it's something we should take a look at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council Rowe.
Quickly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, just earlier tonight we talked about the crosswalk on Lane Street. I think it's another example of the LRTA stop being there and having no crosswalk on either side. So, thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Last item on the agenda, last section of the agenda is on announcements. Does anybody have any announcements? Hearing none, the chair.
I have one. This is a very important part of the agenda.
You're just a little quicker than me. Council Leahy.
This is just a quick announcement. A lot of great feedback on this year's Winterfest. So I think to the management and to the manager and the Winterfest team, lot of positive feedback. That people like the setup this year, the canal, that you could walk all around. So the weather did cooperate. And I just think that, I didn't hear anything bad. I heard a lot of people that actually came up to me to make sure that they told me to tell you and the rest of the council. So people really enjoyed it this year. That's
Thank
my
you.
quick announcement.
Council Rook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to let the manager know I think tonight has been his best night as city manager for Lowell. And I think a lot of that has to do with who is not sitting next to you and who also is sitting next to you. So thank you very much.
Okay, any other announcements? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn, seconded by Council Rourke. All in favor, all opposed? Stand adjourned at 9:15.
A little bit. We had some stumbling. I continue to be aggressive, Kevin.
Thanks.
Good job, Ed.
I'll give you a call.